In today's video, I'm setting up this Fluval Evo Spec 5 and I am customizing the living out of it. I make an RODI reservoir base and I use the auto top this off bracket. I also make a completely custom roller mat filter for this little tiny tank, and I finish it off with this custom Octopus Arm frag rack. Stay tuned to see how this thing turns out, and if you like what I'm doing here, don't forget to like and subscribe. Welcome back to IC Live. My name's Mark. Alright, I've got a lot to get into in today's video. Here is the Fluval Evo Spec 5 that I just picked up. This is a super tiny nano tank. It's only 5 gallons. It's supposed to be for saltwater and even have the possibility of housing coral. We will find out in the near future if this light can support it. However, I am going to make a ton of upgrades to this tank right off the bat just so I don't have to go ahead and do them later. So time to go ahead and get this box open and start to set this tank up. The tank is all set up. Last is just to put the light on here. Now, all it was putting the pump in, the tube, and then the light, and I am basically done. However, I did notice all this plastic trim that I cannot stand, so I wanted to see if I could remove this without destroying the structural integrity of the tank. So I grab a razor blade and I start slowly hacking off a few of these little bracket pieces at the top. I cannot stand this black trim. It makes the tank look super cheap, even though this is a cheap tank. The glass is thin and the silicone beads are rather sloppy, so you get what you pay for. That is a wrap on the setup and ripping off all this trim. I think this thing looks so much better. Now that I have a good idea of what this bad boy looks like, it's time to go ahead and get into the drawing before I get into 3D modeling. My drawing is ugly, but I think it's going to go ahead and get the job done. If you notice, I have this false base, which is the RODI reservoir. I've added a roller mats, kind of scribble at the top, and then an octopus arm and the auto top this off mounting bracket. I'm ready to get started on 3D modeling. The 3D modeling is complete and this thing looks pretty sweet. I got a few pieces out of place. As you can see, I have that screw at the top that I didn't put in the right place, but oh well. Here is the RODI reservoir base. It's the false base, and it's kind of funny because I have this little funnel gas can thing. That's what's going to feed it with the RODI water. There's my auto top this off, and here is the roller mat. It's got a pretty complex basket. I've got the rods and stuff. I didn't 3D model everything because some of the parts I already have from other systems. And here is the Octopus Arm frag rack. This is going to go ahead and be magnetically mounted to the back of the tank, and it is going to be a doozy to print out. All right, it is all modeled up. Now I got to start one by one on making these things, and I'm going to go ahead and start with the RODI false base reservoir. All cut out. Now I've got to go ahead and rip off all of this little protective paper on the outside and get this thing assembled, and I'm not a fan of this part, so I'm going to go ahead and speed this up 10x. The acrylic base is all welded together, and I really hope it's watertight because I do not want to have to revisit this. Now I'm going to go ahead and let it sit to dry, put a little bit of weight on it. Once it's all dried up, I'm going to wrap it in vinyl, and it's actually a vinyl snakeskin.
Tomorrow for sure.
I am all done skinning this water reservoir. That was actually really easy. Now it's time to go ahead and get the Fluval Spec all set up and filled with water. The tank is all set up and running, but I've got to go ahead and install this. This is my little Oxzoa creature. Now this serves a purpose because all of these Fluval Evo tanks, they actually have a hole in the back wall to allow water to get into the pump. If, let's say, the water level gets too low, the pump will never run dry. Problem is the tank does not filter properly. So if there's not enough pressure and the water's not high enough, it will just bypass the overflow at the top. See the grates? The water's not even touching them. And the water level's nice and low here, and that is because there's this little tiny sliver of a hole down in the bottom of the tank right here, and that has to be plugged, especially for the roller mat situation, because ultimately the roller mat would be irrelevant, water would just keep going in the bottom. So I put a tiny little bit of CA glue on the back of this bad boy and printed it out so that it's going to fit perfectly into this little notch. Let's see if I can get it in there, and it is good to go. Now watch the water level here on the left. See it immediately start to drop. It's going to keep going down. Still dropping. Now this thing is filtering properly. So if you have a Fluval Evo 13.5 or the Fluval Evo Spec 5, I highly suggest plugging the hole in the back wall so that your filtration starts working properly. Also, quick note, I do have the Octo Arm already in here. I don't know if I have any video of me making that, but hopefully I can find some. I did find this video, which is right after I got the thing finished up and installed the frag plugs. I still have to figure out how I'm going to get the magnets connected within it, but I will do that in another video. Here's a print of the Auto Top This Off bracket. This is actually from the last video that I made, so if you saw that video, you got a little bit of a insight into the improvements that I've made to this bracket, and I'm going to go ahead and put this one into the Fluval Evo Spec 5. This is the Tool ATO. This is actually what I use, and once again, check out my last video because I go way more into depth into this ATO and how the bracket works and how to install the bracket. The optical sensor fits perfect in this bracket. I just twist it up and it snaps, that cord sits in place. Then I'm gonna go ahead and put the cord into the cord slot, and the very last thing I'm gonna do here is I'm going to go ahead and add the tube for the return. A few quick notes for you. It helps to go ahead and stretch out the vinyl tubing so you can fit it over the ATO bracket tube. Also, I highly suggest using some silicone right around this connection point, mainly because the layer lines from 3D printing can cause some leakage and make it hard to make this watertight. And 100% use some zip ties or some hose clamps to secure this onto the pipe.
Several bad puns later.
The tank has been cycling for over a month now, so I'm going to go ahead and do a water change, and then I'm finally going to install this ATO unit. So this part ended up being a fail. I tried to secure this with zip ties only, and I didn't use the silicone, which was my own suggestion. And what do you know, when I do the test run, it leaks. Ultimately, I have to rip off all these zip ties again and then go ahead and install silicone and re-zip tie them. I ended up using 3 zip ties on every connection point, so this thing is never going to leak again. I wrap up the ATO installation, and then I'm just going to go ahead and leave this thing for several days before I turn it on so that I can make sure the silicone cures up. Time to finish up the roller mat. I already have this printed out and sitting in the tank. However, it took multiple different variations, as you can see right here, to go ahead and get this thing right. One of the major issues was that the back wall of this Fluval Spec was uneven. So I had to actually taper the size of this. It got skinnier toward the bottom. And that once again goes to speak to the fact that this is a cheap tank and it's put together a little bit cheap. So the wall wasn't even straight. But here's some of my failures, and sitting in the back of the tank is the correct one. With the basket complete, I still have to go ahead and complete the carriage, so I'm going to get that bad boy laser cut out right now.
Begin laser ignition!
Laser cuts look good. Let's go ahead and get this thing assembled. The carriage is all dried up, and here it is. Couldn't ask for anything more. It looks great. Now I'm going to go ahead and install the fleece roll. Now, quick note for anybody who has any of these roller mats, here's how you replace a roll. You take a roll, you screw the knob screw and the gear screw onto the roll. I had this in my last video going over an update on these bad boys. Once you screw this in, this will be ready to insert into one side of the fleece roller, and then the other side of the fleece roller, you're going to go ahead and insert the roller rod. With the roller rod inserted, what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and pull the fleece around all of the rollers, and then you're going to go ahead and secure it with a little piece of tape to the roller rod. I just use clear boxing tape. It actually sticks really well to the fleece. So just go ahead and stick it on here, wrap it around the rod. It sticks perfectly. It was not going anywhere. And then once done, you just roll the fleece over itself. This thing is ready to go in the tank. Cannot wait to see if it fits. I guess I haven't even tested that out yet.
3 weeks later.
Here is the tank, and yes, it's been about 3 weeks. I've just been cycling the tank, and as you can see, I put in just one little zoanthid frag plug just to see how those zoas are doing, and there's a random mushroom down in the bottom. So let's go ahead and insert this carriage and see how this thing works for me. Now this was an old cutout. This actually was wrong. I was just kind of testing the fit, so that's why I had to redo the cutouts. Where's the new one? Here it is. Alright, this thing's ready to go. Here's the moment of truth. Please tell me it fits. How am I going to do this? I don't have my tripod. Oh, had some carbon in there just to clear up the water if I can get that carbon out. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and drop that carbon in the side of the basket so it's still being used. It's really cool. These baskets have their own little media chambers on the sides. See? There it is. Alright. Let's install the carriage. Oh, so far so good. Dare I say like a glove? Yeah, I mean, flawless. It's perfect. I was a little worried because remember the back wall, the plastic wall right here is not perfectly centered. I mean, this is really the best I can ask for. This thing is so cool. It's right exactly where it needs to be. It looks like it's working how it's supposed to be working. Now I've got a few more things to finish up, and this tank is very close to being done. I have just one more thing I'm going to do in this video, and that's give this roller mat a cover. I just designed, printed, and installed this on the tank, so let's go check it out. This was the first print, and it turned out usable. It's actually not a very good print. I just did it quickly, and the design is also not that good, so I need to redo this cover at some point because I have to remove the light to put the cover on and take the cover back off. I turned the ATO on, and it is finally working and not leaking. And to fill this thing up, and I never showed anybody, you might have seen it in the 3D model, but to fill this thing up, I have to use this little 3D printed funnel that connects right here to the reservoir. I can also just move the tank during a water change because when I take out 2 to 3 gallons, the tank only weighs like 20 pounds, and it's really light and easy to move. And that is a wrap for this video. Now I've got a whole bunch of other stuff I got to do with this tank because it is not done. As you can see, the zoanthids that I have right here are doing great. And there's a little detritus down at the bottom of the tank just from the tank running for a month or two. This video has been one of my longer ones, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this into a second part when I put livestock in this tank, finish the ATO arm, and make this tank look spectacular. If you'd like to see part 2 of this video, maybe part 3 or 4, who knows how many videos it'll take, be sure to like and subscribe. If you want access to any of the models that I have in this tank, just shoot me an email. I'm not currently going to be selling the roller mat because it needs to be tested, and it's also rather expensive compared to the cost of the tank. So if you'd like to try it out, shoot me an email and I can go ahead and shoot you the files if you can make this yourself. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you live in the next video.